want to talk about, like the
Well,
election?
let's start talking about the Kennedy thing.
Huh?
Uh, let's start talking about. Okay, well, why don't you introduce it? Today is what's today's date?
Okay,
July.
yeah. Just give me a second here.
To
Let me
talk
do
about like
this.
the election. Well, let's start talking about the Kennedy.
About the who?
That was a Freudian slip. The Kennedy assassination. I was referring to the attempted assassination of Trump.
Oh, the assassination.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. We could just talk about it. I mean, we could play the stuff too, but the thing with, everybody's
All right.
seen it. So, all right,
Well,
wait, let me just start. Let me give it a shot. Let me start it. One second. Let me do this. And where am I going to go? Pin me. There we go. Hello, everyone. This is Going Viral. Today is, I believe it's the 25th of July, 2024. We're starting out this episode with Ken Aaron in New York and Jim Dingman in the Bronx. So let's go, Jim. Let's start talking about the supposed attempted assassination of Donald J. Trump, which happened about 5 days ago, I think. So,
right,
Jim, go right ahead.
right. Well, first of all, it's a pretty busy news day because you have the FBI director Wray was in front of the one of the committees of Congress today, the Judicial Committee, I believe. And then you had Netanyahu speak, and then you had President Biden. But let's talk about what the FBI director said. Now, we know that yesterday, on Monday, the Secret Service, or rather, yeah, it was Monday, 2 days ago, the Secret Service director talked, and she basically didn't answer much, and she got jointly attacked by both Democrats and Republicans. And then the next day, she resigned. So Ray actually gave pretty interesting details into what had happened. For example, it turns out that Mr. Crooks had been researching the area for a long period of time in Butler, Pennsylvania. I think he'd gone down there 2 weeks beforehand, actually visually inspected the place. He was looking, they went into his encrypted laptop information and discovered that he had one of the searches he did was how far away was Lee Harvey Oswald when he shot John Kennedy, which is interesting because, we know that when he shot Kennedy, it was, I don't think it was 100 yards, but it was, because Oswald was using a bolt action rifle. But it was close enough that he was able to get several shots in, including the headshots that killed Kennedy. Uh, so that was interesting. And then they also uh, revealed some very interesting tactical detail. First of all, it turns out that there were two, according to Ray, there were two Overwatch sniper teams from local police who were in a position where they were actually overwatching the roof where Crook eventually took his shots. And by overwatch, I mean they were actually in a position where they could observe the roof itself. And according to Ray, these two police officers were the two police officers who actually went and one guy boosted the other cop up on top of the roof. And that was the story where we have this cop who was looking over the top of the roof, and then Ray Crooks pointed his weapon at him, and then the guy immediately fell down. So, but they'd left an overwatch position where they actually would have seen Crooks positioning himself with his weapon. Now, it turned out that Crooks had a folding stock AR-15. Again, I'm just relaying what Ray said. And according to that, that was one of the reasons why he was able to walk around and get up on the roof because they were trying to figure out how he got up there and all that. I still think they're not clear about that, how he got up there. I think, he rented a ladder. The ladder issue is still a little controversial. I don't think it's been completely adequately explained. Then they talked about how he had explosive devices, two explosive devices a transmitter button to actually blow them up. But according to Ray, even if he had tried to blow them up, they were too distant in range from the electronic signal that he had on the roof when he was killed to actually blow them up. But that's it. So these are new little tactical details. Another tactical detail was that the timeline. Oh yeah, 2 hours beforehand, he had deployed a drone outside the immediate perimeter of the area where they want to have total control. So that was sort of interesting. They have an inside perimeter where they want total control. That is the Secret Service with local law enforcement, and they have an outside perimeter, which, according to them, was the roof where Crook took the shot or shots. Now he fired 8 shots. They recovered the rounds. He also had been practicing his marksmanship at that rifle range that's south of Pittsburgh. I think it's called Demolitions. I think that's a T-shirt he had on him when he was killed. And let's see what else. Now the issue of the Iranians. Republicans kept on bringing up the issue of the Iranians. There's a plot to kill Trump and Pompeo because of the assassination of Soleimani several years ago, the head of the Quds Force in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So they were trying to imply that perhaps that was what was going on. All of them were trying to figure out, okay, so is this a lone wolf operation by crooks, or is there some sort of conspiracy to actually bring other people in? And they were all anxious to find out with the encrypted data if in fact that was the case. And it still seems inconclusive from what Ray's saying, although he did admit that he was aware of the Iranian issue, but the Republicans are trying to bring that in. Then another thing they brought in was the question of, well, how many terrorists have actually come across the border because of this unrestricted flow that Biden has allowed since he became president. I'm just repeating what they said. And, the FBI announced that they had, of course, investigations. But I know that that's something the Republicans are making a talking point, that all these, when they lifted the Trump restrictions, who knows if there is a attempt to do this. And one guy brought up a scenario that would be, well, suppose simultaneously you had Friday night football attacked all over the United States, like bombs and people coming in with automatic weapons to kill as many people as possible. And the assertion was that that is what is in preparation. And of course, Ray doesn't know. He said, yeah, that's a possibility, but I don't really know. We don't have any intelligence about that. So those are the main points to emphasize. The Democrats basically were arguing about the question of imposing gun control laws on AR-15s. Swalwell from California asked a question about, well, suppose the guy had a bolt-action rifle. How many shots would he have gotten off as opposed to the volley of 8 that he got off in about 4 or 5 seconds? So anyway, that's sort of the range of opinions today expressed by Ray and the FBI director in front of the House on the
Yeah,
assassination.
what if he had a RPG
Yeah,
rocket?
they brought that up too. Someone said, well, like they asked the Secret Service guy, Secret Service woman the day before, like, suppose everybody had RPGs. Wouldn't that be a threat? Because she was sort of waffling due to her issue of not getting involved in Second Amendment controversies as an official representative of the U.S. government. She waffled on that yesterday or Monday when she was asked as a hypothetical, well, what happens if everybody has AR-15s? What happens if everybody has RPGs? She's finally admitted they, of course, would increase the problems for the Secret Service. Everybody had RPGs. But, the question of, everybody having access to automatic weapons or an automatic rifle like the AR-15 was, and I think, a legitimate issue to raise because, why should some little dumb shit kid be able to get an AR-15 with little to no background check? I mean, I find,
Hold it a minute, 1 second, 1 minute. Excuse me.
yeah,
I think it was his father's RPG. as a father's gun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the
He
point
just
made.
took the gun from his
Yeah, took
father's
the gun.
house.
He took the
His
gun from
father called
right,
into the police
right,
and
right,
told them, at least, I don't know, 2 hours earlier,
right.
my son took the gun and ammunition. I don't know. I don't know where he went. I don't know what's happening. He notified the police, not the Secret Service, but the police. Here's
Right.
Steve Kaiser.
Right. Yeah, that was reported. I don't know whether now again the timeline is still up in the air. I don't know whether that was before the attempted assassination that the father called or afterwards.
I think
I'm
it was,
not sure.
I'd
But
heard it was before.
okay, so that could be. That could be. I mean again, so Ray actually gave as a FBI official the most concrete information we've received so far from the US government about this issue. So that was basically what was covered today with that testimony. And I've watched most of it before they had a recess. And then they came back and asked questions again. But, they were trying to make the little partisan brownie points, both the Democrats and Republicans. But Ray, I think, added some new information. And the question of the encryption was interesting because they're complaining about encrypted emails. They are just beginning to break into the stuff he revealed. I mean, who the hell knows what other kind of things this guy went looking for? But they were looking for any evidence of someone else that he was cooperating with, including how he came to build those explosive devices. But
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So
I
that's it.
got. I want to make a comment. I haven't thought of this until you just reviewed and summarized. Hi, Steve. Jim
Hi,
was
Ken.
just summarizing the testimony of the head of the FBI or somebody from the FBI who went over the what's the timeline of the events on the attempted assassination of Ronald J. Trump. And after you went through all of that, it reminds me of obviously there's an attempt to cover it up. It doesn't make any sense to say two policemen tried to get up there, he put a gun at them, and they fell down, and that's it. What are you talking about? As soon as something like that happens, they see a guy on a roof with a gun, stop the event. Everybody make a phone call, stop don't let the principal target come on the stage and start sending troops or squad teams to go get him. A guy on the roof with a gun, and I fell down. I was standing on somebody's shoulder. I fell down. So it sounds like cover up. And the key thing that they're not addressing is entrapment. Quite often, the FBI and the CIA get stuck where they try to entrap somebody by encouraging them to do some terrorist act. And then, oh, geez, we didn't stop them soon enough. And sometimes it goes to court because they do stop them soon enough and they prosecute and they say, well, it was his idea. I only was following along, or. And then, things like they lost the weapons that they lost to the Mexican cartels because they were trying under Obama. So this could have been an entrapment gone wrong.
So where
They
does the
string it
truth go,
along. We got a
Ken?
guy here. He's a white young man. This is good for the media, and he's going to he could take his father's gun, and so we can use it for anti-gun legislation, and we can use it for white military is the most dangerous thing in the world. White militants. He's a white male, and he's straight. He wasn't gay, so it could have been an entrapment thing, and that could have been why they lowered the security level and they let it move along. Maybe they intended to do something, but snafu situation normal, so they didn't stop it. So they might not have. Let's say the FBI or CIA was behind it. They didn't intend to kill Trump, but they intended to entrap somebody to try to kill him, and then they would come in like heroes and save the day, but they messed up. I'm just saying it's another potential scenario because it's the degree of negligence. I've heard various ex Secret Service guys on podcasts say, "No, this is ridiculous. These are routine things you do." You have three teams that come in, and one of the teams is to go out and check all of the potential sites. Another team is to make sure that there's communication set up between the local
Do you think
police.
it was bungled bad enough that the top person should resign?
Yeah, whatever. Having her resign doesn't resolve anything.
Well,
It's like
what could be
that. The
resolved?
question is, the
What are you talking
question
about?
is,
Resolve what? What's to be resolved?
it doesn't resolve the failure, the mess that occurred.
Of
Just
course not.
firing the person who was responsible and incompetent doesn't do anything. The question behind that is, why was she ever hired? That's the question. And
Because she
where
was the
was the
best person
backup?
for the job.
She was a terrible person. Not no
Well, in
background.
retrospect, you say she's a terrible person because they almost shot his eye out. But
No,
otherwise, she was fine.
nope, nope. She did not. She was the only thing I heard was she's security for Pepsi Cola. She didn't have
Bullshit.
any military background. No military background. Inadequate.
She
I
No.
worked
think
for
you
the
have something to say there.
she worked for the Secret Service for over what 20 something years. I mean,
Who?
she
The woman? That
yeah,
woman?
yeah. The director of the Secret Service was a professional Secret Service officer for a couple of decades. I mean, she just was a grunt who got kicked upstairs. I mean, to say that, look, the DEI issue is ridiculous because so what? There was a woman who they're complaining over the height of a woman. I think one of the questions was asked on Monday was, well, how tall is Donald Trump? 6'3". And that because they were referring to the picture of them taking Trump off the stage, and there was, you know, a couple of people who obviously were sort of like freaked out and disconcerted. And they had a short woman who I think at one point she's trying to reach into a holster and draw. She, puts back her pistol into her holster. But so what? I mean, like and then the Democrat. Then it sort of was funny because they banned Morning Joe on Monday. They wouldn't let him get on the air because they figured he might go nuts. So the next day, he gets into this whole thing about, oh, look at this 9 seconds. Trump was exposed to another shooter. Well, if you listen to the actual audio, they come on, they get the two guys with the AR-15s on, excuse me, the M4s on each side, the black uniformed Secret Service officers, and then you can hear them say, "Okay, is the shooter neutralized?" Yeah, and then they take him away. But it's sort of to me, look, we just got to get what the facts are. We got to know more about this kid's background, whether the Iranians are, because they kept on asking, well, where's the evidence? The American people want to know the evidence of an Iranian hit. And, and they haven't proved that. None of that was offered in public testimony, certainly Monday, because that's, she resigned the next day. But Ray today did not get into, he said, I don't know, and the question whether this guy's a lone wolf or not has to be conclusively answered. And, like I know that in the environment of how Americans view everything after the Kennedy assassination, forget about it. There's going to be this environment where people are going to look for conspiracies, and they could be right. I'm not saying they could be wrong, but, that's their first inclination. And it seems to me that this kid was, at this point, a very well organized individual who, but again, we just don't understand why the hell he decided to go off and start to do this. Because he went to this site on July 7th. He went to the site on July 7th, and then early in the morning, he was at the site for about an hour, and then he flew the drone later in the afternoon. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so don't they have any kind of anti-drone surveillance on there? When you have a presidential candidate making a speech who's protected by the Secret Service, isn't there some sort of aerial protection against a drone? Because the guy could have sent a FPV right into fucking Trump and killed his ass. I mean, a drone with an explosive with a grenade would have helped. That would have been it for Trump. So
Wait a minute, Jim, stop it a second.
yeah,
There's always going to be maniacal maniacs who, for whatever reason, because they were upset about Tinkerbell and Peter Pan, well, it doesn't matter what the motivation is, It doesn't matter how crazy the antagonist is. What matters is you anticipate that you are going to have things happen
Mm.
possibly that are outside of your ability to predict. So therefore, you want to take as maximum amount of prediction and protection and consequence, fast response as you can. There's no way to stop the John Hinkley's of the world, or if you think that it was a magic bullet and it was Oswald, great. There's always going to be people like that. Sometimes they're going to be wrapped up in political things. Sometimes they're just going to have taken too much psychotropic drugs. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be somebody like that. The thing is, what happened to the jacket that he was supposed to be wearing, the jacket of security from the Secret Service? That's their job. And they do have duties of checking for drones and checking for what they, over and over, they keep saying, any kind of an elevated site with a straight line, in an uninterrupted line directly to the target. So that anything like that,
Well,
they clear it. So they didn't. So it's like
well,
they're covering up. I believe I don't have any evidence for it. Anybody whoever threw up Iran, that's just a diversion. It's what's it got to do with Iran? That kid was
no, the
connected to
Republicans,
Iran. Come in, give me a break.
the Republican congressman kept on bringing that up.
I
Go
don't
on.
care who brought it up. It's just irrelevant. The
Well,
point is not who did it, who tried to kill him. The point is who failed to protect him. That's the relevant thing.
well,
'Cause in the future, you can't identify and prevent everybody from
well.
trying to do something like that. You have to have protection. You
All right.
can't say I'm gonna
Well, I'll
appease
tell. I'll
everybody.
tell you.
I'm
I'll
gonna
tell.
send everybody
All
a
right.
teddy bear so they no
All right.
longer get
I'll
upset.
tell you. I'll tell you. If you had 3 or 4 guys with FPV drones coming at Trump, see, that's the whole thing. You only have one guy so far who's the shooter. Because if you want to really kill somebody, you want to triangulate the fire. An FPV drone. I'm saying to myself, wow. I wonder how they protect the air domain of a president speaking,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well.
because look at what they've done. They've moved everything inside now. Now the other thing is, Ray also said that the son bought the rifle from his father, so he
Right.
had turned over possession of the AR-15 to his son in October of last year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that he borrowed the weapon. And then they were a bunch of gun nuts. They had 14 firearms in the house.
Uh huh.
Very typical of people in rural Pennsylvania. I mean,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Jim,
yeah.
we got Mike just joined us. Hi, Mike. Glad to have you aboard. And Steve. So I'm going to put this my question is, what's more important to get more information about the antagonist, the predator, and try and solve it that way, or more to find more information about why the protective agency, the secret police, what's it called? Secret Service, why they failed, what was the cause of the incompetence and the failure of standard operating procedure. There was nothing here unusual. It's not like a submarine that they didn't know about. This was standard operating procedure that they did not follow specifically, and it was not only not followed, that woman admitted. She said, well, they wanted to go on the roof, and I said, no, it was too slippery or it was too hot. She interfered with the standard operating
No, she
procedure.
wasn't there. She
And
wasn't
so
there.
now,
No,
Jim,
no,
let
you're
us not
misstating.
talk. Let us give these two people
No,
a chance.
hold on. But see, you're misstating what she said. She did not say. She said that she was asked. I watched both those hearings. She was asked by a ultimate reactionary
I
congressman
don't
from.
care who answered the
Let me,
question. What was
let
her
me,
answer?
no, she was asked by this guy who was one of the guys in charge of the phony electoral scheme in Pennsylvania, retired brigadier general in National Guard. She was asked, well, what about the angle of the building? And the response to her was, well, we sort of dismissed that. But Ray also said something very interesting about the two guys who were the counter sniper team that was from Bucks County. and they were in a position where they could not, in their overwatch position, see the roof where Crook got on. And one of the guys stayed in his overwatch position, even though from that position he was in, he could not see Crook. So the other cop went down. That was the cop who lifted his head up to see if what the hell was going on with Crook. But they did not abandon the overwatch position. So right there, anybody who's going to go nuts about Bucks County counter sniper teams, essentially they couldn't even see the guy.
Okay,
that,
thank you very much. You're making the case. It
I'm
was
not.
incompetence. They didn't follow standard operating
No,
procedure.
no.
You're making excuses like this guy
I'm
had a bad day, his underwear
I'm
was too tight. Now hold it. Let us stop talking. Let's get more viewpoints from
yeah, but
Steve and
viewpoint.
Mike.
Yeah, but
You
viewpoint.
know, Jim, cut it out, Jim. I got
Hold on.
to mute you. Okay, let's go, Steve. What do you?
let Jim wrap it up in his own way.
All right, go ahead. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. Go ahead, Jim. Wrap up your point of view.
Viewpoints. It's not a question of point of view. You either listen to them or you didn't listen to them. I'm expressing what they said. I'm not
Yeah.
giving a point of view, and we don't even know. We don't have the full picture yet. That's enough.
Okay, good enough. All right, we don't know. Great. Okay, Steve, what's your? I know you've studied a lot of past events that were questionable in terms of participation of federal agencies. So, what's your
Well,
viewpoint on what happened and the coverage? And is there any cover up? What do you think?
I don't think that there's anything mysterious here at all. I think it's exactly as it's laid out. That this 20-year-old wanker decided to he wanted a moment of fame. You probably don't know this, but in analyzing his phone, he was tracking Biden as well. So I don't think it was a political statement. It was a statement in his behalf to get a moment of fame in his otherwise miserable life. You know,
Okay. Well, that's the predator. Why did the Secret Service fail to follow standard operating procedures?
they didn't. They
Okay.
followed what? Well, why do you think they did?
Because the testimony is two policemen went up on the roof. The predator pointed the gun at them. The guy fell down. This was way before Trump ever came on the stage. People were shouting, "There's a man on the roof with a gun."
Well, I know that, but
And
when
and
did
and
actually,
the and
when
and
did Crooks
the what's
point a gun at a security officer? Who was the security officer that Crooks pointed a gun at? What are you talking about?
okay?
When did Crooks point a gun at a security officer? What are you talking about there? I never heard that. You're the only person that's ever
Okay.
said that.
Did you hear the thing about the one guy stood on the other guy's shoulders to see what was going on there, and then the guy pointed the gun at him and he fell? You didn't hear about that?
Yeah, that's
No.
about that's about a minute before the guy starts shooting. All right, that's the critical 5 to 6 minutes that occur. It's not like it happened like an hour beforehand. It's just they and then it turns out that the counter sniper teams, the way they were deployed on those two buildings behind the stage, there were trees blocking their ability to see
On one
where
of them,
Crook was.
one had
No,
a clear line of
oh,
sight. The other one was blocked by the tree.
well, they should, but I think the people who took the shot, it's sort of weird to figure it out because one of them they had to move over. But anyway, they did a three.
Okay. Okay, great. So basically, we've got no culpability about incompetence from Jim and
Not saying that. I think it was incompetent, but I don't necessarily fault their procedures or know that they've gone adhered to. Now, these two guys that were they two security officers, one standing on the shoulders of the other?
No, one
Jim,
of
do
them
you know?
one was one before he opened fire. A local police officer was boosted up so he could peer over the roof, and then he saw Crook in his prone position with his weapon, and the guy ducked down. And that was seconds before he let loose his volley of 8 bullets.
Okay, not enough time for them to react in an effective way then.
I don't
Correct.
I don't think it was minutes before. I think it was
Oh, seconds. Seconds,
no.
Steve.
You'd say seconds. I don't think that's correct, but
Well,
What do you
maybe
think?
I'm wrong. But
well, you got to look
What do
at
you think, Ken?
to
Ken,
open your
what do you
mouth.
think?
on.
Well, personally, at this point in time, I'm seeing things that sound mostly like a cover-up. The big thing that I'm missing here is apparently the shooter put a ladder there to get up on the roof. Did he? What did he do with the ladder? Did he swallow it? Where's the ladder? Why didn't those two guys use the ladder to go up there and look at him? Why did they stand on
Hell
each
no.
other's shoulder? So when I get inconsistencies like this, I'm
Yeah.
getting covers up. So I don't know if I mentioned it before you joined. There's a possibility that this was an FBI attempt to entrap somebody, and it got out of hand, and they didn't get a chance to stop it in time. But having
Trap
a
who?
guy and putting a guy in a position where he says, I can't see, there's a tree in my way. Move, buddy. You know, you have to cover the potential sites. I've listened to people who were, former Secret Service agents, and they say there are 4 steps you're supposed to take. You're supposed to check all these sites. Critical site, anything with a straight line of view and an unobstructed ability to shoot the target. And absolutely. And all they have to do when people are shouting, there's a man on the roof, is say, don't come out, stay inside, to Trump. And they
Yeah.
knew there was warnings at least 5 minutes ahead of time, not 5 seconds. And people yelling, and I saw a guy with a periscope or with a rangefinder and all kinds of stuff. Is the key thing here to me is incompetence. It doesn't get solved by firing
Yeah,
that lady.
wait,
It
wait,
gets
wait.
solved by
All right,
deeper study as to how the Secret Service operates and what's behind it.
all right,
It's
all right.
not where does the
All right,
coin go. But
All
I'm
right.
sorry I talk too much. But let's go to Mike, please. We got
Well,
everybody got to
Jim has
participate.
something he wants to say, so let Jim say it, and then we'll go to Mike.
Come on,
okay.
Jim. You want to make a
No,
response? Go
but
ahead.
yeah, yeah, but you're making a comment that that they didn't know. First of all, they were asked about the rangefinder. That is not a big deal. So someone has a rangefinder. A rangefinder allows you, if you're at an event like that, to actually use it as a telescope to see what the hell's going on. So people who have a rangefinder, they ask the Secret Service person, "Well, is that the grounds for shooting somebody in the head?" No. And then
Excuse
the
me,
question,
Jim. Hold it a minute.
hold
Stop
on,
a second. Stop.
hold on.
Stop. Stop. Didn't you listen to the report from the guy from the FBI? Wasn't this person identified as not a suspect but a person of interest before he got on the roof? He was on. This is a person we should find out about. I heard the woman say we didn't have time to locate him. We had identified him, but the way things went, we didn't have a chance to locate him again. That's what was statement was made. So as long as you're unsure, you tell the president, let's put somebody out there to sing a song or give another speech. Give us another
What?
20 minutes before you go out. This
No, I'm just expressing
bad,
what you
failed,
said.
failed standard operating procedure was not followed.
Look,
And she
look.
admitted
Well, what
it.
do you got standard
Can't
operating
let
procedure?
Jim speak.
I mean, come
Go
on.
ahead, Jim.
What they were saying was that uh, then suppose some guy crawls on a top of a building outside the immediate security perimeter that they have to secure. What are they supposed to do? Shoot a guy on the roof because he wants to look at President Trump? They didn't see that he had a weapon because he had a folding stock automatic rifle. So he's able to keep it under his jacket when he crawled upside the roof. So and it's reasonable. What are you supposed to kill somebody because some guy's on a roof looking at a president? And but suppose he doesn't have a goddamn rifle. And that's a reasonable response to some Republican who's trying to say, well, why don't you shoot the guy right away? You know, again, you got to have cause, and like I frankly, where they screwed up is they didn't go track this guy right away and search him out. And who knows? And that's an interesting question. Why, when they had that he was looked on as a person of suspicion, why didn't they go after the son of a bitch right away? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, they shouldn't be letting this guy walk around in the areas that he was walking around in. They identified him. They knew he was there. They should have acted on him with more certitude than they did. Well, one good thing is I think it's changed a bit of Trump's tone. I think it was a very sobering event for him. The next day, he looked like he had a brush with death. So maybe it improved him in that respect.
Don't count on it.
We put up his natal horoscope last night, and he's got his part of fortune in the 10th house. And the way that's interpreted is when somebody has such a placement, they're looking for a moment of fame. And it turns out that Crooks had been tracking Biden's location also. So he reminds me of Arthur Bremer, who shot George Wallace in '68. It turns out that Bremer had been following Richard Nixon, but couldn't get close enough on him, but couldn't get close enough to George Wallace apparently.
I'm sorry, Steve. That was the astrological chart for Crook or for Trump?
Crooks,
Crooks. Okay.
yeah, he's got part of fortune in the 10th house, which is your public image. You're standing in the culture, and such a placement often to people that are looking for that moment of fame, that brush with fame. And I don't think things are going particularly well for Crooks. He was 20, they going to community college, living with his parents, wearing a full set of braces and pimples on his lip. The poor guy not going anywhere. All he had to do is shoot out Trump's eye, and then he goes down in history forever, which he nearly did. Just
Well,
an inch to
let's
the
say one.
left.
Okay.
Ken's been waiting for me to speak for a while.
Now, go ahead. Go ahead,
Let-
Mike.
let's
I'm muting
forego-
everybody else, including myself.
Let's forego all the supernatural stuff here and try to get back to the real world. First of all, there's a couple of questions that I have. How far in advance of that, before the local policeman tried to climb on the roof to see what the guy was doing, how far in advance of that were people yelling, "There's a man on the roof"? That's one question. The other question is, who was responsible? Because this could have to do, this can be a bureaucratic thing. Who was responsible for that roof? The Secret Service or the local police? Who is responsible for maintaining security in that area? If it's outside the security zone, does that mean that the Secret Service were prevented or at least or partially prevented from securing that roof? That's another question that I have. Thirdly, Jim is absolutely correct. You can't just go shooting people off roofs or something like that. You can't shoot somebody because it's a matter of suspicion. Otherwise, we'd have to kill off half the United States, including 3/4 of Trump supporters. Another problem that we have here is that if somebody went up on the roof, tried to go on the roof, and the guy pointed a gun at him, etc. Again, how long before the guy started firing was that? Because apparently the person, the cop that tried to come up and talk to the guy, pointed his gun. Apparently he radioed in. Was there enough time to take any action before the firing started? Once the firing started, the Secret Service's job is to protect the president, the candidate, or the person they're assigned to protect. That's their primary purpose, not to shoot people off the roof. They had the snipers there to do that, but the fact is, the Secret Service kicked into action right away as far as their primary job. Now, if you want to say that change the priorities of the Secret Service, assign more agents there, I mean, let's face facts. Trump was doing these rallies left and right. You have how many Secret Service agents are you going to assign to protect him? 200? I don't know. We don't have enough information at this point to make any judgment. We're just shooting in the wind. Maybe there was, maybe the Secret Service did fall down on the job. Maybe there was a problem as far as put it in military terms, core boundaries. What were the boundaries between each of the law enforcement agencies? What were the lines of communication like? How good were the lines of communication? Did the guy have a ladder? That's also, you're not gonna, if there's a report of a guy on a roof, you're not gonna, the first thing to do is not to go around looking for how he got up there, but rather get the guy off the roof or stop the guy from doing something. However, Jim's right about something else. If you can't positively identify the person having a gun, you can't just shoot. You probably have to get up there on the roof and find out what's going on. Whether or not they should have gotten the president, God forbid, whether or not they should have gotten Trump off the stage at that point, that's one thing. But Trump is a very childish figure. It's hard to get him off the stage or something. And the Secret Service may not even want to bother, telling him, no, you got to get off the stage or something. Trump wouldn't know what was going on, and he'd start flailing. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what the proper questions are at this point. However, as far as procedure going forward, I would say that yes, the Secret Service would have to review their procedures, review how they're doing things. They would have to review who has the authority to what. Those are the only buildings within the immediate area. I guess somebody should have secured them. Maybe they should have had somebody on the roof hours before the rally. There's a lot of unanswered questions. To me, the big question is, what do you do going forward? As far as Trump goes, there's a situation here where people are going to be trying to find ways. I guess we can thank the Supreme Court for this. People are going to be able to try to find ways to off this guy. Shooting. If you're that naive, try shooting him. They'll try poisoning him or something. Personally, I don't think Trump can trust anyone, and he never has. But now he's got a reason not to trust people. The people around him. I'm not talking about his opponents. I'm talking about the people in his inner circle. So I don't know. I still say there are unanswered questions, but there's one question you guys can answer, which is how long before that the law enforcement officer went up on the roof to check? How long before that were people saying there's a man on the roof? And if Jim's right, and it was only a few seconds when the guy went up to check if somebody's on the roof, it was only a few seconds before he started firing. There wasn't much else that could be done. But I would like to know the questions as to the timing of these events. People saw somebody on the roof. When did that happen? And don't start giving me stories that you heard on Fox News or CNN or whatever, or anywhere else on the internet. I'd like to know what the timeline was.
Okay, let me intercede a second. I just looked up, just Google search timeline of attempted assassination of Trump, and you get various timelines coming. I've got one from the GazetteMail.com. I don't know which ones are accurate, and it tells you when they spotted the guy 20 minutes before, and who saw him earlier in the day, and Trump was out there talking, and how long was the guy on the roof before before Trump came out, and how long before he started shooting. So you can look at those timelines and take a look at it. The fact that there was a shooter on a roof with line of sight indicates a failure of standard operating procedures of the Secret Service. That's what I'm saying. But let me stop. Excuse me, Steve wants to ask something, but before we do that, hello, Alex. So you want to make any comment about the attempted assassination of Ronald J. Trump or not? I know you're upset that the kid should have practiced more.
Yeah. If he had been killed, would have made a difference. But except for all the chaos that would have happened. But
Lost opportunity, right. Okay, let's go to Steve.
Well, again,
Go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
disagree with Jim a little bit. I think it's his, or I think it's the Secret Service. They don't have to listen to Trump. Their responsibility is to protect, their protectee, to protect him in spite of himself. Again, they didn't ask, President Reagan or Vice President Cheney when they, Cheney on 9/11, they just, grabbed them and from the, I think it was the Oval Office, and took him to the basement. And in the case of Reagan, again, they're not, obviously there's no condition, I think, to say anything, but they didn't wait or wait for orders. So I think once they saw somebody on was notified there's somebody on the roof, and I mean you can see them. It's not seconds before Trump was shot. I mean, I don't know how many, but it was minutes before even Trump went on the stage. I believe though he was first spotted, because you can see the videos where they're. It looks like it's seconds because they're obviously editing it. They're not showing you the 20 or 30 minutes or whatever 15 minutes between he's spotted and on the roof. And because remember, there was time enough for somebody to cop to get up on the roof and point a gun at him. So obviously that that's not something that had to notify that cop and to get him up on the roof. That took some time, a few minutes too. Yeah, but I think it's responsibility of the Secret Service again is to get him out of get him. That may be a problem again. I don't know if their protocols have changed since years ago. And again, I mean there's also the question of essentially the Secret Service chief. She resigned, but she's also clearly holding back and perjuring herself in front of Congress. That even again the Democrats essentially were ganging up on her too. So, and I don't think the FBI did too much better today. And again, our Congress hasn't been covered in glory either. Given how they just fortunately, again, I think a lot of them stayed behind from the Democrats for Netanyahu showing up today and listening to him basically lie, as he's done in the past. I mean, ridiculous lies like claiming no civilians have been killed in Rafah.
Alex, we're going to go to that next, but let's finish up on the attempted assassination. Anything else on that?
Yeah.
Again, obviously I'm like Mike again. I don't see evidence yet of a conspiracy, except I think it seems likely to me. Again, I was arguing this with Jim yesterday at the library. I think again from other people have said this, that I think he had to have training from some other people, that he didn't just become a marksman, a pretty decent marksman, without again and obviously he did it somewhere. He probably did it with some other people. So we really need to find out more about who he was talking to, his contacts. Because again, this whole, I mean, we found out, even if you accept the Warren Commission on Oswald, we know he had contact with, dozens, hundreds of people before the Kennedy assassination. So the idea that, this guy's, some real, just because he's a young kid, that he's some kind of real loner, and he never, he just did this all on his own. Again, that strikes me as implausible. But yeah, let's hear from Steve.
Okay, Steve, go for it.
If you're covering a presidential candidate and within your range of view, you climb up on the roof and you see somebody up there who then points a gun at you, that man's dead. There should be no pause between that event and his death. He's instantly dead. There's no reason for him not to be dead. So you're saying they fell off and there's a few seconds and then he started shooting Trump? I'd like to know what the records are of the voice communication between their walkie-talkies at that time, to be able to really find out who's at fault there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, let me tell you something that also was said by Ray that was quite controversial, and I'm going to quote it. With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear. I don't know right now whether that bullet, in addition to causing the grazing, could have landed somewhere else. And I personally think that, I saw that New York Times photo. That's a goddamn bullet heading towards his head. But the issue of the ladder is also answered by Ray. Ray said that he got up on the roof, not by a ladder, but he found mechanical material. I'm quoting Ray, mechanical material on the ground. And in other words, the guy hoisted himself by vertical piping on top of that roof. And I don't know what mechanical equipment he found. Maybe he found a ladder on the ground that they were using. But that's what he said. Now, the other issue is about the distance of the target. You know, Oswald was a Marine trained to shoot rifle. Anybody who goes through Marine Corps training, they teach you how to shoot a rifle pretty well.
He's still a lousy shot. Go ahead, sorry.
Oswald shot at a range of 60 yards. This kid shot at a range of about 160 yards. Now, the timeline they now have put out, they put out a whole bunch of timelines. The timeline that was put out is at 5:51, the Secret Service is notified of a suspicious person. That's 20 minutes before the shooting. At 5:52, they share the information about the person. Now, I think that Steve's right. It would be great to see what the actual commo was. At 6:03, Trump takes the stage. Now, they did not know at this time that the kid had a weapon, all right? But they just figured they reported he was suspicious because they saw a rangefinder. At 6:09 is when you start to see people alerting officers to the gunman. So here he is on the roof, 2 minutes before the shot is fired, approximately. They're pointing up to someone's on the roof. They notice the guy's bear crawling on the roof, 50 feet above him. So that's the reports that go into the cops. Before the shooting occurs, between 6:11 and 21 seconds and 6:11 and 32 seconds, an officer tries to get up on the roof, and the guy turns his weapon on the officer. The officer falls down. Okay? At the time he starts to shoot, about 6:11:28, 5 seconds before the first shot is fired. So we're talking about 5 seconds is that video where people are screaming the guy has a gun. All right? And people are starting to run away. 5 seconds. At 6:11:33, the first shot is fired. 6:11:34, 2 more shots are fired. So the gunshots, then you hear a whole bunch of other rapid shots. 6:11:37, more gunshots are fired. If you listen to the audio analysis, you look and see there's 8 shots fired by the shooter, and there's only 2 shots fired in return. 1 shot gets the guy. So that's the timeline that I'm seeing. Obviously, it could be revised, but remember, 5 seconds is where you see people screaming at the guy has a gun. Now, 5 seconds? Shit. And then he starts to shoot. So
there was only 2 shots fired in response. Only 2 shots.
Yeah, 2 shots. 2 shots, but one. I think the first one took him out because you could see that sniper on the roof there.
It's the one furthest away. The sniper that's furthest away is the one that hit him. He was unobstructed by the tree.
Correct. Yeah, the guys who were closest were crippled because of the tree.
They didn't fire any shots?
That I'm not certain about. That's a interesting question. We don't know.
How do we know only 2 shots were fired in response?
We heard the audio. I've seen audio analysis of the pop. Actually, and you could see that the 2 shots fired in response have a different sound signature than the shots coming out of the AR-15. So, basically,
only 10 shots you hear on the tape, though. 8 from Crooks, and then 2. Yeah,
that 2 from him. And so the guy got off. between the first shot, 6:11:33, he fires the first shot. Then in the space, two other shots come a second later. Two other shots. So he squeezes the rounds off. And then 3 seconds later, another three shots are fired. And then you start hearing the reports of the one round by the Secret Service sniper who's assisted by a spotter. All right, because remember, each of those guys were operating with a spotter. So the spotter obviously got him, and they, boom, knocked him right out. But keep in mind, 5 seconds, not minutes. And the first report is 20 minutes beforehand. Here's this guy who's not coming in through the magnometers, who's outside the perimeter. Now, the point that I would agree on is why the hell wasn't somebody on that stupid ass roof? All right. Why didn't they have a cop up there or two cops up there? Because who gives a shit if it's hot? That's where they're going to get critique. Here's an obvious place to shoot, and you didn't have anybody up there. And so the question of what the perimeter was or is from the future is going to be eliminated. But as I mentioned earlier, 2 or 3 drones on Trump's ass, that would have been it for him. But you need a couple of guys cooperating to do that. And this guy supposedly put the drone back into the car. He used that drone beforehand to do his recon, and it was very clever. He flew outside the perimeter, the inner perimeter. That was interesting. Why do you know that was the inner perimeter? I mean, so there's a whole bunch of answers to questions we don't have, but I just want to share that. That's what was so difficult about Ray today. He dismissed the ladder thing. And again, I don't know if the ladder thing is true or not. It could be. But I'm just relaying what Ray said today.
Okay. Who's Ray? What's his post? What's his full name?
He's the director of the FBI.
What's his name?
What's it? Richard Ray? What's Ray's first name? Christopher Ray. Yeah, he's the director of the.
Ray. Okay. Great. All right, so we beat this to death until we get some more evidence, right? So let's go on. I know Alex has something. Did you have anything you wanted to run before we go to Alex? I have something. I'll save it for the end. Jim, do you have anything you wanted to share? What do they call it? Sharing. All right. Okay, we'll go to Alex.
Wait. I have something.
Go ahead.
Did anybody listen to Biden's speech?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. The last thing I wanted to note is that when they've done the audio recording, all the rounds are fired within 5 to 6 seconds. So that's the key thing. Keep in mind, it's this event happening very rapidly.
Okay, great. So Mike, I think Mike.
Wait, Jim, just one thing again. Did
go
Ray? Because there was a question, to the Cheadle, that I'm sure you saw about the number of shell casings they found. Did he answer that? How many shell casings were on the roof to prove how many shots he had made?
Yeah, he did. He answered that they had in fact correlated. The ATF took control of that, and they correlated the casings on the ground with the weapon being fired. So the question of a second weapon involved. I mean, again, look, we're going to find out more. I'm sure we're going to find out stuff that will topsy-turvy what I'm saying. They're trying to find out how this guy pull all this shit. And frankly, for a lone wolf guy, I must admit he nearly killed Trump. That's for sure.
He got a long way, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So I think Mike's topic of Biden's speech, I didn't hear it. Maybe, is anybody else aware of it? Are you going to mimic it? Are you going to present the speech,
No,
Mike?
Of course, I heard the speech. I mean, and then Netanyahu actually talked beforehand.
Okay, but what did Mr. Biden say? I'm more interested in what Biden said than whatever Alex is going to talk about who killed who today. But let's say, what did Biden say? And then we'll go to Alex. What did Biden say, Mike?
Well, the things that struck me, I mean, first of all, it was a good speech, not well delivered, but Biden, forgetting about the debate, Biden has never been a great deliverer of speeches. But the substance of it was very good. The point that he seemed to emphasized at the end of the speech was that that it was we the people, not the candidate. They said you